Yogi's 80-20 remark leaves no room for the imagination. It is, after all, a yogiism. His best or worst, you can decide. But it is a term, an expression which only he could have devised or thought of. The moot question is, should he have said it? Lesser mortals like me would have never gone down that road. But we are simple commentators, not practitioners of real politics. Is it a moral argument? No, if you smell the divisiveness that stinks in that term. But yes, in a certain way, if you really see what happens to a section of the 20% in the real world in our country. And if all what I am saying is my way of beating around the bush, then let me come to the point and address the issue at hand. The 20 refers to the biggest minority of the country, and probably Yogi pointed out the bad choices that are foisted on or inherited or accepted by the 20%. Hi and welcome all to the CAA show. My name is Juggi Bhasin. CAA is, of course, conversations and analysis. So at the outset, let me say that I have no interest in defending Yogi's remark or condemning him. The political and social reality of a people does not exist in binaries. It works and thrives in shades of grey. Actually, what the Yogi remark, and that also so close to the UP Assembly elections, has done is that it has not only set up a churn and forced us to think on the obvious divisive nature of the remark, but also and more pertinently ask the more urgent question: how much truth there is in it? Let us look at certain facts before we answer that question. Firstly, in pre-independent India, apart from Jinnah and people like him and his party, the overall Muslim leadership was stellar and completely nationalistic. Over the years and after independence, the quality of that leadership began to deteriorate, and men of character were replaced by yes men and rubber stampers, culminating in that now infamous episode when the fifth president of India, Fakhruddin Ali Ahmed, post-haste signed the ordinance for the declaration of emergency, forwarded of course to him by Indira Gandhi in 1975. The cartoonist Abu Abraham so well captured that shameful moment in our history when he showed Fakhruddin Ali Ahmed lying in a bathtub and quickly signing the ordinance and asking the messenger, "Are there any more ordinances to be signed?" That moment of complete capitulation of a democratic rights by an obsequious, non-questioning president ushered in not only shameful and a dark chapter in our history, but in a sense lent legitimacy to a procession of Muslim leadership in the country which gave service in the family darbar of the Congress party. This small group of politicians feathered their own nest and ignored the aspirations of the toiling Muslims masses who had put them on the pedestal in the first place. The quality of Muslim leadership fell off the roof after that. The decline continued in the post-Mandal phase, which saw the rise of new so-called socialist, Lohia-inspired political entities. In this brave new casteist political world, there was of course space for Muslim leadership, but of a different kind. The 80s and 90s saw the rise of the Muslim Bahubali or Don or criminal lord who would double time as an MLA or a minister and also as a mafia Don. Today when Yogi snipes and takes pot shots at the Muslim leadership, he's not too way off the mark. The criminal edge in the Muslim leadership has been a fact of life. It took on another dimension in Muslim majority Kashmir, where much of the leadership would at one level talk of Kashmiriyat and secularism, but Janus-like would also hobnob with anti-India elements across the border and keep the pot boiling. The Bahubali and the anti-national leadership morphed a little bit more as time went on, when completely communal leaders like Owaisi entered the fray and queered the pitch even more. Fact of life is that the quality of Muslim leadership post-independence has been by and large abysmal, which has never really bothered with what people on ground zero really want. This leadership ironically would project criminal strength in the so-called Bhai culture, but it would only flourish on the continuing weakness of the ordinary Muslim at the bottom of the pile. This leadership used the cliche of secularism and minorityism to trap the average Muslim in a sea of backwardness, mediocrity, and medievalism from which there was no beachhead or landing shore visible for miles. In a sense, the so-called secular parties, the new fangled secular parties promise the suffering Muslim masses more and more of the same mediocrity with a no exit clause thrown in as a rider. Yogi, in his very yogi offensive yet truthful manner, has put the finger on the pulse of this problem. He refers to the leadership of the 20% which honestly has been the pits. And of course, if anyone challenges that premise, especially a person like Yogi, then it is next to impossible for them to escape the tag of being, within quotes, communal. The real issue here is that the minority safekeeping and visitation rights of the secular lot has come under attack from Yogi. If you do believe, in the words of Thomas Friedman, that the world is flat, then we are not only referring to geographical and economic flatness. We are really talking of erasing that eyesore hump of minorityism in an even landscape of equal opportunity. A place where there is no place for cocooned, mothballed concepts of minorityism and everyone lives and breathes the same air. And a beginning to that might well perhaps be to listen to Yogi's causticity very carefully to understand some home truths. And on that note, I come to the end of this particular episode of the CAA Show. I hope you have enjoyed this episode. If you do like the CAA Show, subscribe to us. Subscription is absolutely free. And on this note, it's goodbye, cheers, and a good night from me.